how would you describe, because I think when people would hear these stories, you know, they'll hear that kind of story and it won't register to them that it's real, you know, like that kind of thing would make sense. How would you explain this type of supernatural living to someone that's so new to this kind of culture and atmosphere, you know?
It's really what Jesus says, that to see the kingdom, you've got to be childlike. And that's how we've always positioned ourselves, of just being childlike, of never turning our wow into a how. And so, you know, it's always keeping the wonder and never trying to work it out or trying to, you know, make it understandable in that sort of sense of sometimes a mystery has to remain a mystery. I think we lose sight of the supernatural when we try and work it out, or we get suspicious, or we get into a place of dismissal. Oh, that can't be God. When time and time again, God continually, like, you know, there's things that happen that, you know, no one knows about, but, you know, they happen on a daily basis. And, you know, it's really keeping the wonder in the little, you know, them God-accidental times when, you know, you think, oh God, that could only been you. Wow, I can't believe that. And so just being aware of them, I think people are looking for the, you know, the big fireworks, or they're looking for the wow, you know, moments, but it's actually the little things that actually lead to them.
Yeah, I think too, it was just actually, like Gary is saying, it's like it was actually a lot of little things that actually, when you put it all together, it sounds like an extravagant, crazy supernatural story, and it is for sure. But it was like God just took our steps at each moment. He met us at each moment. Yeah. And I think we were surrounded with some amazing people at that time that really helped navigate that season to a place of, in a healthy way. But I think at the end of the day, it was like God actually invited both of us to really choose each other still. Even though we could see and experience all the supernatural confirmation and everything like that, I think at the end of the day, we still chose each other. Yeah. And we still chose to love each other through the thick and thin. So if we didn't come to that space, I don't think we would have lasted through some of the really hard stuff that we've experienced through just life and marriage and, you know, just what happens in daily life.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's choice. And I think choosing to live a supernaturally aware life is a choice. You've got to choose that. I think, you know, it's like Moses in the back end of the desert. You know, burning bushes were, you know, dime a dozen. And I think that's what people don't understand. Bushes burned. Otherwise, you wouldn't say, how is this bush burning but isn't consumed? And because, you know, so Moses every day saw burning bushes. But it was his choice to actually turn aside and say, actually, this is something different. I'm actually going to choose to acknowledge. I'm going to choose to turn aside. I'm going to choose to focus and actually be aware of this. And I think awareness is a choice every day. Yeah. I think people just go about life sometimes and, you know, they don't stop to smell the roses. They don't stop to ask the question. And I think that's one of the things I think people are afraid of in these days, is to ask the question, is that you, God? Because they're afraid, like, oh my gosh, am I going to deny God? Am I going to blaspheme the Holy Spirit if I just ask the question? But it's for me, it's just asking the question, hey God, are you in this? And, you know, I remember one time God did something, and I remember just making this phrase, you know, God, you did that on purpose, didn't you? And I remember so clearly hearing, he said, Gary, I didn't do that on purpose, I did that for purpose. And so you realize there's things that God does in our life, and they're just for purpose.
It's so amazing to hear how you guys say that it's choice and childlikeness, because I think that kind of stuff happens to people every day, where it's like, I feel something on this, but I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. So then they just ignore it. Yeah. You know, but I think childlikeness is actually just making the choice to believe that it's real. You guys teach people that so well. I mean, our minds were blown being around you guys. Like literally every day it was like, just little things, like Sarah especially, like little things, you'd be like, yeah, but can't God do bigger than that? I'd be like, oh, you're right. Like, I shouldn't put God in a box. Speaking of how you guys empower people and disciple people, tell me about the school.
School of Prophets was a dream becoming true when we sat, and when I say we, Sarah and I, you and Sam, sat around a table one day, and you asked the question. And the question you asked was, what is in your hearts? What is something, if nothing was impossible, what'd you do? And we just literally opened our hearts and began just to share what was in it. And I remember you just turning around and going, well, let's do it. And I'm thinking, what? There's no way. This is crazy.
Because it was like November, December.
Yeah. November, December of 2015. And you're like, no, we can do this. Let's do it. And so we began to whiteboard, we began to plan, and literally, within days, we had this, what I feel was like this Lego box of bricks. And it was like, there's a brick, there's a brick, there's a brick. Like, what the heck? How does this all come together?
We're like,
yeah, let's just juggle this and see what happens. Let's throw it against the wall and see if anything sticks. And so we decided to put this curriculum together. And so I drew on some of my experience from having a school in Wales. Sarah drew on experience from, doing the discipleship course. You guys drew on the experience you had with School of Supernatural Life. And it was kind of like all these ingredients came together. And, we contacted people we knew, and all of a sudden we were legit because we had this logo, and then we got a website, and then, we got this and that, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, is anyone going to sign up? And then the Lord spoke to us about taking it online. Mm-hmm. And it was like, this is impossible. As soon as we said yes to that, it's like the floodgates opened. So yeah, we ended up then with 50 people in-house and then 50 people online.
Yep. It was.
And it was like, where did all these people come from? And it's just been a story of continual transformation where people are like, even last night, we heard a testimony. This is our 5th year. And this woman said, for the first time in her life, she enjoys being alive.
Set free from depression.
She's set free from years of depression. Yeah. She is smiling, she's dancing, and for the first time in her life, she's actually enjoys being alive.
It is an amazing privilege to be able to teach and be a part of people's journey in the 8 months of the school that we do, and just to watch how Father, like, people come to the school thinking they're going to learn how to prophesy, and yes, you absolutely do, and you grow in the prophetic, even if you're experienced in the prophetic. But it is just such a personal journey with the Father that everybody goes through, and they are all transformed. And it's such a shocking process for so many of our students. But the breakthroughs they get that they would never have imagined any other way. But it comes out of that space of setting that time aside for growing and learning. And yet God trumps them. He does exceedingly abundantly above all that they could ask or imagine every single time. And it's addictive.
It is.
What's so cool about the origin of the story is it really shows the childlikeness, because when we were in the beginning stages of it, when the online thing was brought to the table, that was where you guys were just like, yeah, let's do it. And me and Sam were like, really? I don't know. I don't think we could do this. We don't know what we're doing. And you guys were like, God knows what he's doing. We're going to do it.
We'll figure it out.
And now, look at where you guys are at now, today. I mean, you're doing everything online. Mm-hmm. Tell me about it.
We didn't realize how well God actually equipped us for this season. It was very stressful, but it was like overnight. We set up our front room as a studio, and we brought all of our equipment from school home. But majority of our school, aside from our in-house, is already kind of online anyway. And then you spend hours and hours and hours learning Zoom.
Yeah, I would watch YouTube after YouTube on Zoom, and all the different equipment and all the, all that kind of how-to. And really, I think this is another lesson in hearing not just the Holy Spirit, but also listening to your wife. Is even last year, Sarah's like, honey, we need to establish a studio in the front room. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that'll be good. One day we'll get to it. And so she's like, no, we need to. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get to it. And all of a sudden, like when COVID hit, it's like, boom. So we brought all the equipment home. And we didn't realize, actually, even all the different things that we set up in setting up the school, like even what Sam was involved in and his unction to go with certain equipment, or his like, oh yeah, we could do this way, but actually let's go that way, actually future-proofed us for this season.
Yeah.
And so it's just literally plug and play. And so, with the whole black magic and it's, you can't even use that sometimes around evangelicals. Because like, what equipment do you use to do your school? Well, we use black magic. And I'm like, what? We don't want to be part of that school.
If you don't understand.
If you don't understand equipment, people think we're into witchcraft. And so it's just been, a real joy of actually realizing how if you posture yourself as a learner when things happen, then you'll begin to lead. If you think you can just lead when God changes a season, you'll be forced to become a learner. And so I just keep hearing the Lord saying for this season particularly, just keep learning. Humble yourself and keep learning. Keep going back to that place of learning, because when the season changes again, you'll find yourself leading. So I think it's key.
What would you say is like the high of being a prophetic leader? Being a prophetic kind of pioneer, and what would you say is like the low or the challenge of being someone that is seen as a prophetic leader?
I think the high for me personally is watching the manifestation of the kindness of God constantly when I make myself available. Gary makes himself available to use the power gift basically, and his love and the vehicle of his love and kindness being made manifest. Because the thing that actually gives, for me especially, but I know us, the most pleasure is when they come back to you and say, I can't really remember what you said, but I encountered Jesus' love or the Father's love. And that's what they remember. They remember the tangible encounter that they got in that moment. And for me, that's definitely the high. What about you, hun?
Yeah, that definitely there. And I think also as well, when you give someone the tools to connect with God for themselves, when you see the light go on in their eyes, when you that sudden realization, I've just connected with God, I've just connected with the Father through just a simple activation, or through just sharing about what God's done in your life, all of a sudden the light going on, it's addictive. When you see the light going on in someone's life. The other aspect, I think, is when you hear someone prophesy for the first time, you don't just get that privilege of hearing them, you get the privilege of hearing another aspect of God's heart that you'd never heard before. And so when they start speaking, it just wrecks me. And it's an absolute privilege. We've given our life for this because of that privilege, and we never want to take it for granted. I guess one of the low lights, I think, in there is being misunderstood, being probably it's that place of misunderstood, not finding everyone understands your heart. And so I think sometimes when you do take a step of faith, or when you do step out, we all know it, haters are going to hate. And, you just can't help that. Even Jesus had people who were against him. And so for me, it's just keeping your heart, focused on what he said. In the midst of everything, it's just keeping your heart, believing the best, because that's what love does. Not letting it malign you, but allowing your heart to remain steadfast in what God has said.
I think we're very grateful, especially probably in the last 10 years, that we've had some amazing people be able to walk with us through the lows. But yeah, I think the lows are it's that place of learning tenacity and steadfastness. Because we are so future orientated, or the next thing, or whatever the Lord is actually doing and saying, we kind of sometimes can get quick to be disillusioned and disappointed, or our expectations aren't met because it's not the way we thought it was going to happen. And I think that's a challenge for me, especially, is not to give up when everything looks contrary to what he said, and to actually remain faithful, just like Abraham. And we look at Abraham and we know how, what we would say is he's not actually that faithful, because he tried to do it in his own strength so many times. But even when we think we're failing and that we're not actually believing in him and his promises, and that what we feel are our low places, that he actually sees that journey so differently. And that even in those low places, I still judge him faithful, even if I'm not feeling it and seeing it. And I think those low places for me are like, sometimes we just want things to hurry up, and I want you to meet my expectation, rather than allowing God to actually just do it in his way and his timing. So
beautiful.
Why do you think it's important for people to understand the prophetic, especially like in this day and age? Why is the prophetic so valuable to the body of Christ?
I think for me, the prophetic enables us to get to know a part of the heart of the Father that we wouldn't actually get to know any other way. And you know, when you're getting to know someone, you often get to know them around doing stuff together. And for me, I feel like he's given us this gift that leads us into a place of intimacy, because we actually can't do it ourselves. And we can't make the stuff up. And I feel like it's like one of those dad activities that we get to do, to be able to display Christ in a way that is completely supernatural, but it invites us into a place of intimacy that we don't get in any other way. And I think, too, you know, when it says, my sheep know my voice, it's that space of, you know, we think prophetic is for other people, but it's actually for ourselves first, is knowing his voice first. We're all prophetic, whether we prophesy over somebody or not. My sheep hear my voice, and that is I think that keeps us on the straight and narrow, of knowing when he's really speaking, and that place of relationship and intimacy.
I think the importance is to, in this day and age, particularly, the prophetic gives us the God option. It gives us his heart's perspective on something, and even on someone. The prophetic gives a perspective that's heavenly, not earthly.
Yeah.
The prophetic isn't a gift for others first, it's a gift unto us first. And so we get to hear God for ourselves, because you can't give what you haven't got. And it grieves me when people want to get into prophetic ministry and they hear so well for others, but they can't hear for themselves. Yeah. And that's why, you know, we started the school, because we want to see a company of people raised up who can hear God for themselves. And out of the overflow of that, they can hear for others.
Yeah.
And so it's having that connection with God for themselves first. And that's why I think the prophetic is so key in this day, is because when you're presented with situations and circumstances, you get to hear God's perspective. You get to hear Jesus' testimony about that and get to act.
Yeah, I just love the redemptive nature of God's perspective. And it's so different, because oftentimes we think we have the answers of any given situation, but more often than not, it's not redemptive in its nature. And, you know, for God works everything to good for those who love him and called according to his purposes. And until we can step into what he sees about something, we can't align ourselves into that promise.
What are you dreaming about for, you know, corporately for the world? What do you guys dream about seeing for the church and stuff?
I want to see people prosper. I want to see, you know, as John says, you know, brethren, I pray that you prosper in all things, even as your soul prospers. So I'm not just talking materially. For me, I want to see families. I want to see businesses. I want to see, you know, government, education, the spheres of society prosper. And so, but it comes from that place. And so I'm continually going back to Ezekiel, where the river was coming out of the temple. Yeah. And so, God, what is coming out of the church right now that is changing? And this is what I love. The further away the river was, it says that the deeper the prophet got. And so, you know, it's for me, it's where we can reach that's going to bring the biggest impact. And so even in the prophetic right now, like my heart is to see, you know, innovation and all that aspect of technology and the answers to what this world is looking for is found within a relationship with Jesus Christ, not for our ticket to salvation or heaven, but to actually to become cultural and society transformers. Yeah. And so I want to see that. I want to see that in us, but I want to see that in the world. Is that, you know, whatever God's is doing through this COVID time, God didn't send this virus, but He's going to use it. And so whatever is in this moment right now of us slowing down, taking time, there's a new wineskin. It's a new era. It's a brand new time we're in right now. And sometimes you've just got to lay down things that were in an old season to pick up what God's doing in this season. And so, you know, I don't want to bring what I had to, you know, endure in one season. God wants me to prosper in another. And so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. I think I'm hoping for a major shift in culture, like globally, like church culture, and it actually stops being church culture. It actually starts to be kingdom culture, and that the church actually through this season, I think this is where my heart beats and comes alive, is like actually praying that we all, and it's not, I'm not just speaking to the out there kind of somewhere, this is what the Lord's been speaking to me personally, is that there's a lot of conduct stuff that Jesus actually requires us to look like Him, and that we actually grow up into maturity, and that we start demonstrating Him, we stop judging each other, and we stop being critical, and you know, just we look like our normal culture, and sometimes we're worse off. You know, and it's actually that maturity of Christ coming into the body, that we can actually be the light, the city on the hill, the light in the darkness, the ones with the answer, where we truly know and understand what it is to love each other like Christ loves us. And I think our foundations are being shaken. I think our faith in what we truly believe in the Bible is being shaken at the moment. And I'm grateful for it, as though even though it's so scary and devastating at the same time, on some level, it's like it feels like you know, when you go to the chiropractor and you get realigned, it's like we're out of alignment, and God's bringing equipment to realign us to actually start. And not everything's bad. Please don't hear that. It's just, I think that maturity, that need to grow up and be mature Christians that really truly love each other. Our vision at Stairway is relentless love, and it is that message of relentless love, loving no matter what people behave like. Obviously not permissioning the behavior, but it's like actually let's bring freedom, let's bring love and keep loving until people start asking why. And that's where the salvation message really comes in, is like, why do you guys love each other? Why do you guys help each other? Why do you love me? Like, I'm not worth it. Yeah. But that's where we get to say, hey, you are worth it, because actually I don't determine your worth. I don't determine your deserving of honor. He did, and He died for you. I
think one of the other things as well, I think we're entering an era of the fruits of the Spirit, not the gifts. And I think we've been so gift-orientated that, you know, one of the things I recognize, when Jesus sent His disciples out, He didn't send them out. The commission wasn't a commission of gift. It was a commission of fruit. He said, my peace, when you go, you know, my peace, I give you, my peace, you know, I leave you. Now, when you go into a town, speak peace. He didn't say prophesy. He didn't say heal the sick. Wow. He said speak peace. Yeah. And so it was this, like, speak peace. So it's release the fruit that's going to cause everything else to come up, to manifest. And this is one of the things I think we've missed, is God is calling us to be not peacekeepers, but peacemakers. And this is one of the key places, as I think the church is going to be known in this era for the fruit, not the gifts. And so, when all of a sudden everything's shut down, where do we find ourselves? At home. And so, Tobias, I'm not gonna grow my family. I'm not gonna impact my family through my prophetic gifting. I'm not gonna impact my family through healing. But I am gonna impact my family through kindness, through gentleness, through faithfulness, through all these love, peace, patience, all these fruits are what is gonna build people in this season. And so that's why I think this is a season of fruits more than it's a season of gifts.
So would you guys mind sharing like an activation that could help people to practically, release the kingdom?
Yeah, absolutely, Tink. I think, I'd just love to encourage those watching or listening to just grab a piece of paper and a pen and to just write on the top, Jesus, what is your favorite thing about me? And just to write that question and then to close your eyes and just ask, Jesus, what is your favorite thing about me? And the first thing you hear, just write it down. Just write that down. It doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be, a manuscript. It can be just a sentence. It could be just one word, but just write it down. The first thing you get, the first thing you hear, the first thing you see. Many of us, receive in different ways. And then the next question is, why? Why do you love that about me? And the first thing you get, just write it down. And you might feel silly and you might feel like, oh my gosh, that's so elementary. I feel like a child. Well, remember, we access the kingdom through childlikeness. And the Bible tells us that our flesh doesn't understand what's going on in the spirit. So obviously our flesh is going to react in one way or the other, either out of shame or out of a place of silliness or out of a place of like, I don't know. But I want to encourage you. Just jump in and see what God does. And so, we can do that, not just for ourselves, but after we do it for ourselves, we can do that for someone else. It's just write down, hey, God, what is your favorite thing about Tink? There are listeners, you can do that, and watchers. Why don't you do that as an exercise? Send it in to Tink. What's your favorite thing about Tink? And then write that down and send it in.
Well, thank you guys so much for just sharing your hearts, sharing your story and your wisdom with all the viewers or listeners. And so I'm super encouraged by that, because I know that I truly believe that you guys are going to change the Western church, because I witnessed that in your life. I've seen the gifts of your life. I've seen you guys do crazy things in services and ministry, but then at the end of the day, you're the one that's unloading the dishwasher. You're the one that's making dinner every night. And I so appreciate you guys just sharing truly what's in your heart. And I hope that people can catch that from this episode. So thank you guys for joining us. We love you.
You're so
awesome.
welcome.
Love you too.